Welcome back to the AfterBuzz. Hi, folks. How are we all doing out there this evening? Even though it's actually 10:30 in the morning. Got a few things we're going to talk about on the AfterBuzz today. Which, of course, now that I'm doing this, my laptop's deciding to not turn on, which is great. A couple things. Netflix shows. We'll cover that. We'll cover some really good ones that I'm watching right now. And also, I've been kind of sucked into these fan theories about The Office because The Office, it's become that show that I always default to. There's a few shows that I'll default to. Like if I'm home and I'm looking to nap for 20, 30 minutes or so, I want to put on a show that I've already seen multiple times so that I don't really need to pay that much attention to it. Because obviously if, I haven't seen it before, I'm going to want to know what the hell's going on. And then the worst is if you fall asleep during a show that you have not seen before, and then you got to go rewind and try to remember where you left off, and it's a pain in the ass. So anyway, so there's a whole bunch of different things and that we'll talk about here in regards to those shows. Like The Office is obviously one of them that I do quite frequently. I've switched over recently to Scrubs, though. Scrubs is always a good one because that was a great show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's one I'll default to. And Friends. Those are kind of the big four in my book. And Seinfeld. Big five that I'll default to when it comes to shows that I'm cool napping with. But so the first thing I got to bring up is a documentary series on Netflix called The Confession. And it's all about ways that they trick people into confessing crimes they didn't commit. And when you first see that, you're like, okay, there's no way somebody's going to admit to doing something that they never did. Well, clearly they've made a series out of this for a reason. And I'll give you kind of a brief synopsis of what I've seen so far. I'm only a few minutes into the second episode, and the first story is I think it's a two-parter. It's at least a two-parter, I should say. And so this one, it has to do with a murder back in the 90s. And it was where a son and his friend came home, and the son's family had all been brutally murdered, bludgeoned to death. Dad, mom, and sister, all of them murdered. So they call 911, and the cops at this time are very adamant that these two kids, they're the ones who did this. And this happened in Bellevue, Washington, which is right near Seattle, Washington. So, of course, you also have the Canadian border right there. And I think at least one of the kids is Canadian. So the cops start leaking all this information about how the kids, they had to spend 3 days in this hotel, but then they went back to Canada so that the one kid could be with his family. And the cops were leaking they ran because they did this thing. And it's a real telling story about how when the cops believe one thing, it's almost like they're willing to do whatever they can to come to that verdict, which is the absolute wrong thing you should be doing. But the way that they get the confession out of these kids is they run a scheme called Mr. Big. And what it is when they believe somebody has committed a crime, they have a DEA agent or somebody like that portray themselves as a mob boss. But the whole point being that if the kids had committed this crime, they're going to need some help with something. So the mob boss is willing to take care of whatever is needed to make sure they don't get caught, as long as they confess to the mob boss, because his whole story is, I need to know everything that happened. And that's how these kids get roped in, and it seems strange, but when you're watching it, it's like these kids, they came into a rather large sum of money, which was one of the reasons the cops felt that they were the ones who committed the murders. They did it for money. But the thing that was completely neglected, which wouldn't be neglected now, the family that was murdered was a Muslim family. And the father was fairly outspoken about a few different things in regards to the Muslim religion. Not too long before this, and not too far away, there had been a murder committed by this extremist Muslim group under very similar circumstances. But for some reason, this local police department didn't want to look at it whatsoever. So they didn't. They chose not to. Now, when you're thinking like post 9/11 and we're looking at all the other things that go on with like extremist factions of things, they would probably look into it a little bit more. But they have interviews with the cops now, and they're still like, well, I don't see why that would be a thing. And it's insane the amount of measures that they're going to try to get this confession when there was DNA left at the that was found that doesn't belong to anybody. It doesn't belong to either two of the kids. It doesn't belong to anybody in the family. So clearly somebody else was there, but they're all choosing, we don't want to hear it. We're just going to try to get the confession out of these kids. So if you have Netflix, highly recommend it. I'm only like 5 minutes into the second episode, but the confession, well worth watching. Also, well worth watching, 13 Reasons Why Season 2. I talked to Lisa and Joanna. They said as the season goes, it gets really, really good. But we're 2 episodes in now, and it's pretty stinking good at this point, I would say. So it's well worth, if you've seen Season 1, liked it, I'm so far enjoying Season 2 as I'm 2 episodes into it. Yes, The Confession. People asking in the chat. The Confession is the name of this series on Netflix. It's a documentary where the whole thing is wrapped around how police and authorities get people to confess to crimes they didn't commit. So it's proof that a confession doesn't always mean everything, which is mind-boggling. But yeah, definitely check out The Confession. So another topic that kind of got brought up on the show today a little bit, and then especially in the YouTube chat, was what consists of cheating, and because they were talking about kissing not being cheating. If you don't think it's cheating, then at least to me, there's something wrong there. And I even saw some people in the chat saying like, oh, it's just wrong, but it's not technically cheating. A relationship can recover from it. That's fine. If you're cool with your significant other kissing somebody else and you're cool with moving on after that, that's perfectly fine. Me, I'm not. If whoever I'm with, if my fiance, soon to be wife, kisses somebody else, that's it. That's cheating. Like that, bottom line, that's cheating. That's over and done with. And then I even saw somebody put in there, oh, cheating is just something like if you want to do it to upset your significant other, that's fine, then you can move along. Fuck no. Hell, like if that's where you have to stoop to make your significant other feel shitty, you're in the wrong relationship. Like that's a really, really shitty relationship. And you're a really shitty person if that's what you're trying to do to make your significant other feel shitty about something. Again, if you're cool with it and if you're fine with, if you just go make out with somebody, we'll just make up and kiss ourselves and everything will be fine, go right ahead. But for me, not a fucking chance. Cheating for me is pretty much what would you do, or what would you not do with somebody of the same sex? Would you kiss a dude? I mean, obviously, if you're bisexual, that's the rules are going to change depending on the person. Would you kiss a dude? Somebody's asking, is flirting cheating? Would you flirt with a guy? It's going to be different for every single person, which is why I think you really need to establish, if you're going to be in a long-term relationship with somebody, because to me, flirting is cheating. Now, if I'm making comments or I'm being friendly to a female, if I'm saying things that I would say to a guy, no, that's not cheating. That's being fucking friendly. Like, that's it. But if it extends past that, any sort of a flirtatious mood, then yeah, I think that's cheating. Like if you're in a good relationship, there should be absolutely no reason to go down that path whatsoever. But that's just my thoughts on it. There are some people like in the chat where you're saying, hey, you can recover from cheating, but you can't recover from somebody sleeping with somebody else. To me, those are in the same boat. Like, we're not recovering from that. Like, if you were willing to do that once, the trust is now gone. I can't be with you. So at least that's my thought process on all of that stuff. And the same thing goes for, in regards to text messages or flirting with somebody else or whatever. Like, my fiance has the passcode to my phone. There's nothing I'm hiding in there. If she wants to see it, fucking here. You're more than welcome to see it because there's nothing in there. And that's just, I think you can have a conversation with somebody of the opposite sex and it's not flirting and it's not cheating. But if it crosses that line, then yeah, like that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Anyway, so those are just a couple of things. Now to get to the real meat and potatoes. of this AfterBuzz, and it involves cheating as well, by the way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I found a couple of websites here, and I'm apologizing. I'm not going to be able to keep up with the chat as much as I would like to because I'm going to be on other websites here. The first one is going to have to do with just random fan theories about The Office. Again, I've seen The Office. If you include the amount of times that I've watched it while sleeping, I've probably watched the whole series at least a dozen times. Because it goes in cycles. I'll watch all of The Office, and then I'll pick one of my other shows, whether it's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or Scrubs or whatever it may be, and then I'll finish that one, and then you cycle through to a next one. But The Office is the one that seems to pop up most frequently, and so that's where some of these fan theories definitely come in. Pretty damn entertaining. Number one fan theory here, I'm just taking this from Ranker, and I'm not going to get too in-depth on these fan theories, but Creed Bratton really isn't Creed Bratton. His development as a character was brilliantly done because he started off as just kind of like the old guy, but they really turned his character into true comic relief. There's another theory that Jim and Pam kissed 2 times on Casino Night. I believe it only showed one on the it only showed one in that episode. Michael has serious dad issues, which is why he hates Toby, a divorced dad. The dad issues with Michael, I don't think are really that much of a theory. I think that was kind of shown in the show. But the reason he hates Toby, that's this fan theory doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because Michael at the beginning of the series says, then again, but this could have to do with being an authority figure because Toby, he considers a part of corporate and he's supposed to be anti-corporate. He's there for his employees, not to appease the corporate bosses. Since Toby is technically a link of corporate, he hates Toby. So it could have to do with the authority figure aspect of that. And here's one of the bigger ones. I think we talked about this on the air, that Toby is the Scranton Strangler. And I've seen this one multiple times. It's just there's some fan theories out there that are really just it's a major stretch to try to it's I kind of thought this and now let me try and figure it out. And is Toby the Scranton Strangler? Yeah, maybe he is. There's one that Roy cheated on Pam with Angela. That's another random fan theory. So there's just a lot of these different ones. There's no one here. Stanley and Phyllis had an affair before the show started. That one I could easily see because they do kind of have a interesting back and forth. And we also find out Stanley, not the most loyal of guys. And Phyllis has a, kind of a perverted side. If you remember when they went out to lunch with Jim and Pam on that Valentine's Day, Jim and Pam are sitting there waiting to eat lunch. What are Phyllis and Bob Vance doing? They're banging in the bathroom. Fucking gross. Anyway, so I had heard this not too long ago. Let me catch up on the chat here really quick. Yeah, people are just saying that, yes, some people can recover from certain things. I need someone to talk about 13 Reasons with no spoilers, though. Just look forward to finishing the series. And it's tough to talk about the show without any spoilers. The one thing I've noticed, so obviously the first season, it's all about the cassette tapes. Season 2, the recurring theme kind of seems to be Polaroids of certain things. Again, I'm only 2 episodes in of season 2 of 13 Reasons Why, but it's pretty damn good. And it's one of those things that, again, like people have been great. Like it's difficult to talk about 13 Reasons Why without giving away any spoilers. Somebody says here, today was the first time in a long time Buzz mentioned a girlfriend. I'm curious now. He's mentioned her, a few times actually recently. And people have been pointing it out. And yeah, apparently he's got a girlfriend that watches Nico pee in the backyard. So yeah. Now, go back to The Office here. I know it seemed a little scatterbrained having to jump back and forth, but I don't have a producer to go through the YouTube chat. So here are 13 reasons why Pam Beesly is the worst. And what's interesting is this whole show is Jim and Pam like that. They were the centerpiece. I mean, obviously there was Michael Scott, but they were also one of the main centerpieces of the show, and it was their love story. It was the will they, won't they, and then Jim moves away, and then Jim comes back, and all these other things. And here are some examples of why Pam Beesly is the worst. I haven't watched it since I've really read into these theories, so it's going to be interesting to go rewatch The Office again and try to kind of see these things for what they are. But number one is she flirted all the time with Jim while she's engaged to Roy. Again, that goes to the whole, are you really happy in your relationship? At some point, if that's the case where you need to flirt with somebody else, you might want to get the hell out of the relationship you're in, because it's not fair to the person that you're with. I do find it always funny where people they seem to think very inwardly when it comes to, well, is this okay or not? Because, oh, well, it's making me feel good, which is going to make this better. Or I'm doing this to make myself be in a better mood so I can be in a better mood for my significant other. It doesn't work that way. If you need to do that, you need to get the fuck out of that relationship. You shouldn't be with somebody where you have to go to external things to make yourself happy. The relationship you're in, that person should make you that happy. Again, just my thoughts on it, but I mean, you might think otherwise. Maybe you find somebody who feels the same way. You guys both have your, I get happy over here, you get happy over here, and then we can be happy here. For me, that's not the case. That relationship should be what makes you happy. Clearly, she wasn't happy with Roy, but she fucking stuck it out with him forever. She asked Jim to let her pursue her dream in New York City for 3 months. That one's a little iffy because he was pretty gung-ho about it. Because remember, before they were together, he said, you should try this. Roy was the one who poo-pooed that idea. When it's actually Jim was the one who was very much for it. He said, yeah, please, by all means, go do this. But here's the flip side of that. She asked Jim not to pursue his dream of improving his company by traveling cross-country for 3 months. So Jim was supportive of her, and don't worry, we're going to get to Jim being a dick here in just a few minutes. He was very supportive of her pursuing her dream. She was not very supportive of him pursuing his dream. Of course, circumstances had changed. No kids when she was pursuing her dream. They had kids when he was pursuing his dream. So, things definitely changed there. She was against Michael dating her mom. I mean, you can kind of see it just because of the age gap that ultimately happened and how immature Michael was when he had to actually deal with it. So you can't really fault her for that one. She wasn't honest with Roy about her relationship with Jim. Yeah, that's another thing. If you have to go to an exterior source of your relationship to be happy, and you can't be and that's another thing that would be considered cheating. If you can't be 100% honest with the person that you're with about what you're doing, you're hiding something. That I would consider cheating, or at least something's going on there if you're not willing and able to be 100% honest with the person that you're with. When she does tell Roy about Jim and her, she makes it seem like Jim is to blame. Because, of course, why else, why would she not want to try to make it, and there's heavy sarcasm here right now, why would she not want to point the blame completely at Jim? She tells Jim the sex of the baby, even though he didn't want to know. Bitch move, Pam. She went off on Michael when he started his own paper business. Yeah, but you also joined him too. So she joined. She was the only person from the office that actually joined the paper company. She was upset when one of her bridesmaids hooked up with Dwight the night before her wedding. Again, I would put that kind of in the same category as her. The same category as her getting upset about Michael dating her mom. She put Jim through the ringer about her replacement. Which one is this one talking about? Let me see here. Remember when she didn't believe him that he didn't find her replacement attractive? Oh, yes. There we go. She went crazy and tried to trick him into telling her the truth. Again, why? What the fuck are you trying to do? Like, what purpose is that serving? She put her need for a new chair over the whole office's need for a new printer. Again, this article has a lot of problems with it because half of the office wanted the new chairs, half wanted the printer. It wasn't just her. She plays the opposite of matchmaker. She tries to keep Ryan away from Kelly and Andy away from Angela, and she lies. And then the last one here, she lies about having lice and leads everyone to believe that Meredith is to blame. Um, but there were obviously a whole lot of other things that was really more or less about the relationship between her and Roy and her and Pam. And there was another article that I read, and I think it's the one I'm going to get to here, where it talks about how Pam should have ended up with the camera guy, the boom mic dude. The one from like the final season that's got the hots for. He's like, "Oh, I'll be there for you, whatever." But all in all, they're like looking back now, they're all kind of shitty people. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back and watch this in the same thing. What do we have here? Oh, gotcha. Somebody was saying about in regards to 13 Reasons Why to talk about it once we're finished with the series. Um, and that's perfectly fine. We could do like we did that with Infinity War, and we waited a full 2 weeks to talk about Infinity War before the on the air. Where on the AfterBuzz, I think we did it that Wednesday right after, and we let everybody know, and it was in the headline there, Infinity War spoilers, so be prepared. This thing's going to be filled with it. Oh my God, and it felt so good to finally be able to talk about Infinity War because we'd waited a half a week, and throughout the whole morning show, we're sitting there trying to figure out all these, like, it was so difficult to not want to talk about Infinity War or to not talk about Infinity War, and then to actually come on here, it was great. So let's move on to Jim here, where apparently Jim kind of a dick. This is the article that I believe it lands on, and this one's a lot better than that previous article I just read about how Jim is a dick compared to Pam being a bitch. This is the one that I think that it ultimately lands on. Pam should have ended up with the boom mic guy. Wouldn't go that far, but quite frankly, Jim and Pam were kind of perfect for each other because they were both, I don't want to say they were shitty people, but they both definitely had very similar flaws when it came to certain things. It says here, first of all, it's worth pointing out that Jim doesn't start off as a dick. His dickishness increases over time. First, start out with his treatment of Karen. It's to the point where you remember he moves away, he hooks up with Karen, they then move back to Scranton, and when she wants to move in like a block or two away, he freaks the hell out, and it takes Pam to step in to actually tell it, be like, hey, it's not that big of a deal. He and Karen go off to New York to interview for the job. He breaks up with Karen. Like, he's not the greatest of guys in regards to the relationship with Karen, but of course he was still smitten with Pam. Another one here, remember when Pam had her art show? Where was Jim? Oh, that's right, he didn't show up to support her. Now, that might have happened off camera, who knows? I don't think it did, because I think they even reference in there that the only people that showed up were Michael and then Roy, who brought his brother. Oh, and I'm sorry, they've also brought in Oscar and his boyfriend, who was pissing and moaning that it was hotel art. It says here that his treatment of Pam actually sucked quite a lot. The time after they got together, if you remember the dinner episode, which was one of the best episodes, when they go over to Michael's house to have dinner, and he and oh shit, now I'm blanking on her name. Or Jan. So Michael and Jan, hey babe, and then everything explodes. A Dundee gets thrown through his flat screen TV that's this big, and it pops out of the wall and all that shit. But if you remember, he tries to fake that his house was flooded or it was on fire, and Michael makes the comment, well, it doesn't take both of you to go check that out. So Jim basically, he's willing to bail on Pam, where he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll see you later, and she ends up getting him to come back. There's the time when Pam tries to fake a call to get out of her lunch with her mom and Michael. Jim walks up, grabs the phone, sabotages, basically says, okay, no, great, boom, click, hangs up the phone, negating that the need to stay. And then there's a few things in here that you could tell are a huge stretch, but there's the one here. He bought a house without telling her. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Buying a house and not telling anybody about it. Like, there's no way that, I wouldn't do that. Like, holy shit, are you kidding me? It says here that he's a mediocre parent at best. He'll leave Pam to pick up all the slack with the kids. When he wins the Best Dad Dundie, does he mention Pam? No, he does not. He also talks about, it says here that he's the least supportive colleague ever. He's always bitching about his job and imagining about running away and doing something else, which of course then he tries to do, but Pam keeps it back, which is why they're kind of perfect for each other in the fact that they're both, from what I'm gathering, can tend to be very selfish when it comes to a lot of things. But then again, there's other times where they're unselfish. It's interesting seeing this side of things. And he goes and he pursues Athlete behind her back after she says no, which we've established with her. She was able to pursue her dream. He's not able to pursue his. But then he invests $10,000 to look like a team player, which is he's willing to spend a whole lot of money without consulting his wife. Just saying. And then there's even the part where he moves, or he's staying in Philadelphia and he's hanging out with Daryl. And the quotes here is that it's nice to be away from Pam and the kids and to live the bachelor life again. And then when he's going to move there, he doesn't tell Pam. He tells all the colleagues and coworkers at Athlete that he's planning on moving to Philadelphia. He hasn't told any of the family yet. So interesting fan theories on that. If you guys have any, especially any fan theories about any of the big shows that I mentioned, you guys are more than welcome to go ahead and bring them up. We're getting questions about Deadpool 2 yet. Have not seen Deadpool 2. I'm hoping to see it soon. I believe I'm going to check out Solo at some point this weekend. Probably, geez, it's going to be a busy weekend. I don't know, but I'm planning on seeing at least Solo this weekend. Maybe we'll check out a couple of movies. Let me see here. Jim also wasn't a good boss, they're saying in here. Yeah, he screwed up a lot. If you notice, he tried to combine everybody's birthdays into one, and it didn't really work out, where all of a sudden everybody wants something different. And then he realizes that there's a reason Michael Scott does a lot of the things that he does, because he's been there, he knows what he's doing, and even though you might not agree with it or you might think it's strange, there's a strange method to Michael's madness when it comes to a lot of the things that he's doing. Anyway, all right, so I'll give you guys about 30 seconds or so. I'll give a quick recap of what we talked about today. The Confession, if you get a chance, it's on Netflix. Watch it. The whole thing is about how authorities, police, FBI, and they get people to confess to crimes that they didn't commit, which sounds super strange. But then when you watch it, you're like, holy crap, like that's really messed up. How is that legal? So check that out. I'm 2 episodes into 13 Reasons Why, season 2. I'll give another recap next Wednesday on the AfterBuzz to tell you where I'm at on that. I highly doubt I'll be done with the season by then, just because we've got a lot of stuff coming up this week. But I'll be, hopefully a few more episodes in. Yeah, kissing's cheating. For the love of God, kissing is cheating. Flirting is cheating, quite frankly, but that's just me. You can have your own moral values. It's not to say that you're wrong. Everybody's going to have a different gauge. If you can honestly be in a relationship, and if your partner does that thing and you can recover from it, then by all means, that's good for you. Me, kissing, flirting, whatever, sorry, it's out the door. But on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this AfterBuzz because I got a ton of work that I got to go do, and we're coming up on a half an hour anyway. So on that note, you guys have yourself a great time. Oh shit, almost forgot. We do have our next D&D live stream coming up. It is going to be on June 6th. So before we did them on Saturdays, this one, just to fit everybody's schedule, we're doing it on a Wednesday. I believe it's going to be from 5 to 8 Mountain Time, and fingers crossed, we should have the YouTube thing fixed, so we will be able to stream it on our YouTube. Military Gamer Supply, they stream it through their Twitch, and we will hopefully be able to get it on our YouTube channel this coming up session that we're doing, which is going to be in actually 2 weeks from today is when we're going to be doing it. And we got a lot of other cool things, like that tabletop gaming thing, the audio that Buzz was doing on the show, where he created kind of like that Old West thing. We're planning on putting that into the stream as well. So as we're telling the story and as we're going through this Dungeons & Dragons game, it's going to set the scene a little bit better. And just a reminder, too, it's based here in El Paso. So you're going to recognize a lot of the things, if you're from El Paso or if you've been here, a lot of the things that we're incorporating into the game. So again, that's coming up Wednesday, June 6th. at 5 p.m. We are looking for a producer. If you can run a camera, if you can run the audio from a soundboard while we are doing like describing the scene, then hit me up, Brandon.Coates, that's Coates, at townsquaremedia.com. Let me know you're interested, and we will hopefully be able to pick somebody before June 6th there to be a producer for our Dungeons and Dragons sessions. On that note, be good to one another, and I'll check you guys out next week. And of course, tomorrow morning, bright and effing early, 5 a.m. Mountain Time on Buzz Out Morning Show.